So, greetings, friends. Again, last time for 2024. Welcome to Free Range Thinking. Join us in our cozy recording caves, and we dive into some interesting topics and rabbit holes around neurodiversity. Today, with a guest. So, normally I say ask us questions and share your stories, or you can get on the show as a guest. And of course, you can already subscribe to the newsletter that we are going to send out in 25 that you can do on freerangethinking.com. It's linked in the show notes. So I am Alex Carl, and on the other side of Europe,
I'm Sharon Lee, and every week we serve up a delicious buffet of neurodivergent topics, discussions, questions, and explorations around the subject of living as a neurodivergent human. And we enjoy talking about and celebrating how people like us can not only thrive in today's world, but prosper, because the world desperately needs neurodivergent humans to bring real transformation and evolution to mankind. We are the keys through the shitstorm of a one size fits all world, and that is no joke. That is no
no
joke, my
joke.
friends. Yes. And today in the house, we have Grant Harris. And I'm very excited about this conversation. And we only have him for a short hour. And yeah, if it gets interesting, we promise we'll do a part two. And so welcome, Grant. And I understand you're in like Northern Virginia outside. So those are my stomping grounds. And yeah.
Yeah, glad to be here. Appreciate the opportunity. It's always exciting to talk to anybody, but especially folks who are in different parts of the country and the world. So I appreciate all of the time coordination. Yes, I'm in Northern Virginia suburb. If anyone is familiar with the area, we usually call it the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Mhm.
But specifically, I live in a small suburb called Winchester in the Shenandoah Valley, the top of the Shenandoah Valley that runs all the way through Virginia and down through the eastern seaboard. But I am a Washingtonian by trade. I was born in DC, and this has always been home for me. But fortunately, I've been able to travel and experience different places and different people. But this area is home for me. But I'm glad to be here today.
Cool, cool. I love the fact that we're native Washingtonians. I was also George Washington National Hospital myself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
same.
So like my first thing, we're just gonna jump right in here. So it's like, I'm gonna give you a melange of a question, and you can pick out what you want and jump in where you want. Because I would love to know like how you grew up and how you experienced, like what was your experience being you growing up, and kind of like at what point did you realize that you're on the autism scale?
Yeah, it's a good one. In these conversations, and as I have become more aware of myself, I am aware that I was unaware of much of my childhood. My wife brings it to my attention all the time. She's like, "How do you not remember this about your childhood? How do you not remember that?" I was like, "Well, I wasn't worried about that. I was focused on this over here." In instances where she feels like most kids would remember. So a lot of my childhood, outside of what I remember of being happy, healthy, playing sports, being outside, having healthy, quote unquote, healthy relationships with other kids, that's what I remember. Most of it is told to me, meaning this is how you were when you were this age. You used to do this, or we used to do this with you. And that's how it's been over the years. So a lot of that was, I believe, based in how I was brought up with my family. I have two older sisters, so a family of five. My family was together. I didn't have any severe trauma that many people might have growing up as a kid. We lived in a happy, healthy home. My parents did what they could with what they knew. They came from the traditionalist generation. So that line of thinking from that era of tough love and all of that was there. But they were there. They were present. We knew. We appreciated that. And again, they weren't perfect. They did, and they still do. Both my parents are still here. still do what they can with what they have. So it was what you might call a normal, and I don't like that word, or a
Yeah.
traditional or standard upbringing. Um, Outside the fact that apparently I did not say much until I was three, didn't talk much. And my understanding of that dynamic is that my sisters basically communicated to me and gave me what I needed and or what I wanted by my grunts and points and body language, etc. And I did not know this until I was older. My mother kind of confirmed that she was like, "Oh yeah, well, you didn't." I didn't apparently talk much until I was three. I still don't talk much now. The only reason that I am talking as much as I am now is because apparently you have people that want to hear what I have to say. But
Right.
my natural inclination is to use less words. And as an adult, I would grunt a lot. My wife knows my grunts. She knows the difference between yes and no, or I like that or I don't, or I'm listening or I'm not. Like these in terms of my communication, I have a history of doing that. So that's one little small part of the picture. I did not grow up with disability in my life. No one talked about autism. No one talked about disability. No one talked about being other outside of the fact of being black. And that was a large thing in my household. Being black, I knew that I was black. I knew that I knew the history of black people in this country, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I knew about my father participating in sit-ins in the civil rights movement. I knew about being black and being other from that perspective. I'm the only person in my family to not attend an HBCU, historically black college or university. So that was the other part of my life. But being disabled and or thinking differently and or any type of neurodistinction was not part of my upbringing.
I love that. And I have to say, I like how you the term it neurodistinct, because I've heard people
Yeah,
use like neurospicy, but it doesn't get it for me. It kind of cutesifies it, and
yeah,
neurodistinct
and if
it sits
we can
better
go
with
down
me.
that road if you want to go down that road in terms of
Yeah.
terminology and language. Uh, in my conversations with organizations, and we haven't even talked about like what I do for work, which is great because I actually don't like the whole "what do you do for work" conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We're people first, and we have stories first, and then we happen to do something that pays us money. But
Yeah.
in my work with organizations and with people, I talk about three different understandings of neurodiversity. Neurodiversity, number one, as a whole, as an umbrella, neurodivergence, as in deviating and diverging left or right from whatever the norm is, whatever the standard is in a particular scenario. And this happens to be
In
how
this
people,
given era,
yeah,
because it's like
correct.
since the industrial kind of the industrial revolution and the can't say that word, the dyslexia thing is yeah, you
It's
know
a
what I mean,
hard one.
the pathology of it all. It's that has polarized and categorized in such a way, whereas before everybody was allowed to be kind of different, and they're like, oh, they're just that way, yeah, like they
Mm-hmm.
are in some other cultures. um
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And not necessarily here in America in many ways.
definitely.
Uh, so the diverging is, left or right of center, of
Yeah,
standard, of normal, of regular, of acceptance.
muggles.
And I never really adhered to that. Um, so I believe that you, Alex, me, Sharon, we're all unique, distinct human beings first and foremost, in and of ourselves, separate from each other. And that being said, we all have a unique and distinct experience. And my experience happens to be a neuro distinct one because of how I think differently than the standard traditional norm, etc. How I behave differently. And I always make that distinction in every conversation that I have. It's not just the fact that people like us think differently, we also behave differently. Our bodies regulate differently. It's connected. It's not just a brain thing. It is a brain, body, spirit, all whole connected thing. It's a human thing. So that's why I self-identify as being neurodistinct, because I'm a distinct human being. The neurospicy and all of the other kind of attachments that come to neuro. I encourage people to self-identify as they see fit. However, I also encourage people to understand that when you identify as such based on the culture that you are in, based on cultural norms, societal norms, trends, etc. If you attach yourself to those things, then people are going to put you in a certain box. That's unfortunate. That's the human nature. And I try to fight against that in my conversation. I try to fight against that in my home. But that's why I describe and connect to the human factor, because being human is not a trend. Being unique is not a trend. You can't attach being human to a prefix like neuro and say, oh, well, that's somehow, some way that's not going to be here in 5 years, or that's just a fad on whatever social media. Not
it's
saying
a
that
phase.
yeah, not saying that neurospicy is, because I know people and I appreciate people and have relationships with people that identify as neurospicy. But that's why I identify as distinct and connected to the human condition, because neurodiversity is a human condition. We all are part of the neurodiverse world, and that doesn't mean that we are all neurodistinct. I make that distinction as well. We're all neurodiverse because we all have a brain, and all of our brains, while they may be built similarly, even amongst neurotypical people, they still don't operate the same. So we're all in that diaspora, and the diaspora is different than a spectrum. Different than a spectrum. They might be similar on the fringes, but they're different in my opinion. So I always try to make these distinctions, but thank you for bringing up the neurospicy. And usually we don't go down this road until later in conversations, but I like to get to the nitty gritty up front.
Yeah. And I always try is, to being a wordsmith. It's hard for me sometimes. And it's, this part of me, my autism spectrum thing is like, no, this is like, so it's hard for me not to eye roll, and I do everything I can not to do that. And especially in terms of, being a trainer, coach and educator, and, and having the podcast. It's yeah, sometimes that's a bit of a struggle, and it can be frustrating. So, and not so much when somebody does it with themselves, that's fine. But when they try and put that on me, they correct me. It's like, oh, so you're neurospicy. No, I'm this, and yeah, Alex.
I have as Sharon just mentioned that, I have a question, because as a the certified diversity executive and as a coach and management consultant, you work with a lot of C-levels, I guess, and with a lot of like leadership people in companies. How do you deal, or is there that much eye rolling in companies, like, now we have to deal with another diversity, and now we have to, it's getting more and more complicated. Is that a thing? Is there some kind of eye rolling in the companies? I mean, when they call you and when they want you to work with them, I think they already understood that there is a DEI need to fulfill, and that there isn't that much eye rolling anymore. But yeah, I would like to hear your thoughts on this, because when I talk with people in companies, it's often that feeling, especially in the management levels, they are feeling overwhelmed with, now we have to deal with this neurodiversity also, and that is so much and so high level, and we don't know what to do. That would interest me what your thoughts on this are.
Yeah, Alex, I appreciate that. So many things in that, from a business perspective and then from a human perspective.
Yeah.
So from a business perspective, I prefer to work with clients that want to work with me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And my presentation to those clients is, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is how I do it. This is why I believe that we can work together to have a collaborative, collegial relationship in order to get from point A to point B efficiently, effectively, and equitably. So I present myself to two clients, and specifically clients that I believe actually obviously have a need, but within that have built some type of relationship through that process. Now, that's on the business side. On the human side, there are always going to be people that eye roll. There are always going to be people that say, "Oh, I don't need this. Why are we doing this?" etc. That is after I am already working with an organization and I'm working with the people that are in charge of those people more often than not. A lot of the times, those people are middle managers because they already have a tax on their time. They already have a tax on their resources. And then they're like, it's one more thing to do. It's not about it being neurodiversity. It's about it being, I don't have time. I don't have resources. I'm already taxed. And there's something else added to my plate. That is a cultural American work stream and workflow that is broken. I don't necessarily, I know people that work in those streams and can fix those issues, but that has nothing to do with neurodiversity in and of itself. Not looking at it as saying, oh, we have to do this specific neurodiversity thing, and somehow some other aspect of DEIA they will be okay with. That's not necessarily the case. So it's just the fact that a lot of middle managers, a lot of hiring managers, or people that are in positions not to ultimately make the decisions to move forward with implementation, but they feel the effect of those implementations. Those are the people that have the most negative reaction. But it's not just because I'm here talking about neurodiversity. It's because they either aren't a part of the conversation, which is part of what I do, is to ensure that everyone is part of the conversation. Everyone is part of the work. And it's not just from on high that, oh, we have this mandate now, here's another thing that we're doing, because that's when that cultural aspect fits in. So from the business aspect, I only really connect with and build relationships with organizations that I believe are open to and interested in being better, being more effective, being more efficient, being more equitable. They're not perfect, but they understand that they're not perfect. And they're like, well, how can we get better? Now, when I'm in that organization, yes, there is pushback, or there is friction in many different ways because of the reasons and more that I just mentioned. But that's the biggest thing. It's not because people are not open to learning more about neurodiversity. It's about the fact that I'm already spent, I'm already overwhelmed, and someone else is now telling me what to do versus me being a part of this process and saying, this is how I can add to it. This is what I would like to take away from it. How can I be a part of it? It's just a mandate and an initiative, which I never recommend. Oh, we're going to do a neurodiversity initiative. Well, as soon as you hear that word, that means it's extra. That means it's, oh, we're going to do this for X amount of time.
Right
and
away.
then we're going to find out, did it work or not? And if it didn't work based on the lofty goals that were set, then we're either not going to do it anymore, or we're only going to do it because of compliance, which is my whole ethos, is moving from compliance to community. We're only going to do it because we have to in that moment, or we want to have a baseline understanding, and we're good with that. So these are the dynamics that are there. And again, I have many colleagues that could dive deeper into the organizational culture dynamics better than I can. But that's how I approach it from a business aspect. And that's what I experience from the human aspect before I ever get to solutions and all of that, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah. Like, it's funny because I already feel like I was like, okay, we're going to need a part 2, because there's like things I want to talk about in depth. I want to jump on one thing that you said that I'm like, I speak about all the time, and it's that people are maxed out. And I love how you talk about it. It's like, okay, we can't, even though it's something that we're working on and trying to make things better, we also have to meet everybody where they are. And the fact that in this era, it's the maxed out bandwidth of humans in this era is just outrageous, and it's very unnatural for humans. And it's, again, since like the Industrial Revolution, it's like we're not built to operate at this level of maxed out bandwidth. And so introducing, like you said, introducing another new thing where people deem it's like, okay, this is not a priority, this isn't necessary. So I was like, I would love to ask you, being a fellow I want to say fighter to make things better. And we have a lot of people that listen who are trying, freelancers, trainers, educators who are trying to make the world a better place, knowing about the maxed out bandwidth. Like, in your opinion, how the hell do we help people? I mean, it's baby steps. It's in terms of meeting them where they are. And it's kind of the way I look at it. It's, you've got to scatter the ground with seeds, and in companies, and in companies and groups who are already quasi ready. They're already quasi aware. So, like, what does that look like for you, and what do you see in the future, knowing that it's only going to be exponentially crowded in the bandwidth?
Yeah, so many things. Well, the question is, how do we meet people where they are, where they think and feel that this is an extra thing. So first and foremost, neurodiversity is not a new thing. Been around for eons. People have been thinking differently for eons. For decades in America, it has been researched and scientifically diagnosed, and diagnosis is a whole different conversation, but it's a thing. It exists for decades now. So it's not new. That's number one that I tell people about. Like, just because you haven't heard of a thing doesn't mean it's a new thing. Doesn't mean it just popped up on the radar because you are unfamiliar with it. That's number one. It's been here for a long time. It's not going anywhere. So it's not new. That's number one. Number two, in the organizational perspective, the fact is it's already here. It's not because, oh, you just met me as a facilitator, that now neurodiversity has presented itself in your organization. Nope, it was already there. 30 to 40% of your current employees, whether they've been there 5 years or 5 months, 40% of them identify as neurodistinct already. It's already there. And those are the people that either are aware, those are the people that either have a diagnosis or a self-diagnosis, that are out and loud and proud about it and recognize it and say, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is how I am, this is how I work. There's already a significant portion that is already there in your workforce. So it's not like it's brand new just because you bring a new initiative in or that the conversation starts. Then past that, those folks who are already there, there's a large percentage of them, 60 to 70% of them, that do not want to disclose to a manager, to HR, to a leader, for fear of many things, all the R's, retribution, retaliation, all of those negative aspects. So all of these dynamics are already within your workplace before you ever get to the point of thinking, well, maybe I need to get on this neurodiversity bandwagon thing because my friends are talking about it at the dinner party and it's all over social media. And the science journal that I read says that autism is on the rise. And then the politicians are creating laws because they think that there's an epidemic of autism in the country. Like it's all been there. You are just now becoming aware of it and you are recognizing, which is part of my process, because I come into these conversations with a framework that I've created called RACE, RACE. And the first step in that is recognition of who you are and where you are. And when I say you, that could be an individual, but it also means the organization. Who is the
Mhm.
organization? What are the core values? What are the core principles that this organization holds? And where are you on your journey of this discovery of neurodiversity? Have you already been doing this for the last 5 years and you were trying to get to a different level? Did you just find out about this 5 weeks ago? And now you're saying, well, this is new to us. We need to be educated. Where are you on the journey of neurodiversity? It starts with that. So these are the conversations that I have and the dynamics that are happening within work cultures and organizations. Neurodiversity is not new. Employees are already here working with and around uh, the obstacles that are in front of them. And whether they've been there a long tenure or they just came in the door, those obstacles are still there. I'm here to help leaders understand what those obstacles are and how they set those obstacles up and how they can recognize them and then step by step, block by block, dismantle them and then mitigate them from being rebuilt over time.
Mm.
So that's how I would answer that in terms of, how do we reach people where they are, go
Mhm.
back to history, and then bring them to the present, and then bring them to the future state of what it could be.
Mhm. No, thanks. I know that that's a lot of people will find that very useful who are kind of feeling like they're bumping up against the resistance in companies. Yeah. And the yeah, I like how you said that how many I wrote down how many are out and how many are closeted because being from the LGBTQ community, and there's a lot of overlap. And it's like, so there's a lot of masking on both sides. And so it's interesting because I'm sure companies feel like, oh, Christ, we just found out about this and we have to deal with that. Now we have to deal with this. It
No,
can
you
seem
you
like a
should
lot.
have in that conversation about like we have to, just that phrase, and then the word
Right.
deal, and then the phrase deal with. That's the psychology and the approach around it. Why are you approaching this as, well, we
Exactly.
have to? And then why is it we have to deal with it?
Mm-hmm.
A person, your workforce is nothing to be dealt with. Because if you just
Exactly.
deal with your workforce because you have to, I'm going to deal with Alex today because I have to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not going to make Alex feel like he wants to come to work. That's not going to put Alex in a position to do his or her best work, no matter what his distinction is, whether he's neurotypical or not.
Mm.
Exactly.
So the conversation around, well, this is another thing we have to do, we have to deal with. I start there in terms of changing, uh, not even changing that mindset, changing the behavior of those words. Because when
Mm-hmm.
you change behavior first, I look at it as changing behavior first, because behavior is what actually gets results in organizations. Words don't get results, thoughts don't get results, actions and behaviors get results over time. And actions and behaviors that are uh, recognized, because you can't change an action or behavior unless you recognize the fact that it's happening.
Yeah.
I can't say, uh, Sharon, I'm having this conversation right now and I want it to be better unless I recognize in the first place that the conversation is happening. So that goes
Mm-hmm.
to recognizing again that you have employees right now today that are feeling this way, working this way, behaving this way, and you have to understand that. And it's not about, oh, well, we have to do this now and we have to deal with these people, because that's going to come across, if that's the mindset, that's going to come across in your behaviors. And your behaviors are going to come across as false, as disingenuous, inauthentic, all of those negative descriptors to people who need you to be authentic the most, who need you to be genuine the most, even if you don't have all the answers. But as a
Mm-hmm.
leader, that's your job. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I help leaders understand. And that's what I help leaders to do. And ultimately, those leaders help the middle managers to effectively and efficiently help frontline workers. And mind you, the leaders are also neurodistinct people. So it's not just, oh, well, we have to have this thing and we have to have this conversation for everyone else that happens to be neurodistinct. No, leaders in the Fortune 500, large and small companies, Fortune
Very high
500 is a
percentage.
popular stat. There's 20 to 25% of Fortune 500 CEOs that identify as neurodistinct, mostly as dyslexic, but they don't
Yeah.
talk about that ad nauseum. Some of them do, people like Richard Branson, etc.
Yeah.
But most of them don't. So the leaders themselves cannot try to implement an initiative for their organization, to give it to middle managers, to give it to frontline workers, and not recognize that the leaders themselves are neurodistinct and all of what comes in unraveling that ball for themselves. And then how they behave first to middle management, other leaders, frontline workers, etc. So I always make that clear that this is not something because you called me and we have this relationship and I'm doing this work, that somehow as a leader, you don't fall into the same category as your employee because you are also a human and you are also neurodiverse because you have a human brain. And then you may as well be neurodistinct in that same conversation.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's it's a we, not me positioning.
Correct.
And yeah. I want to shift a little bit and ask you about your diagnosis and like two things. When did you get your diagnosis? And then with the thing of applying, because I know it's different than in America and here. And yeah. So, and when did you get your diagnosis? And then did you apply for disability? And I'm curious about that, like the why of that and the benefits and the drawbacks of doing that. Because people ask me a lot, but I go like, I don't know. So you're like one-stop shopping.
Yeah, I'm coming up on 3 years diagnosed in the spring. And I was late diagnosed. And that whole story is because of my wife. I probably I might not be having this conversation, and I might have not been diagnosed at all if it was not for my wife. And that's a longer story, but 3 years, coming up on 3 years. And no, I don't know the international law when it comes to accommodations and disability. I know the ADA here in America, Americans with Disabilities Act. I have not personally applied for disability because I don't think that is necessary for me. I am capable in my own way of working and having conversations such as these and working with organizations. So no, I have not applied for disability. However, given all of the recent unfortunate medical news in America with the killing of a prominent healthcare executive, I am learning more and deeper because I'm the only person in my family that has ever been diagnosed with a disability, much less autism. So, and I have not gone through the healthcare system to apply for any type of therapy as of yet. And I also have low support needs. If you ask my wife, I have high support needs in lots of areas. But to
I'm dying to ask for an example.
Yeah, the communication is where that comes in. But to the external world, I have low support needs. You would not know that I'm autistic by looking at me, etc. So I have not applied for ABA therapy, and I'm also not a child. Now, obviously, adults can go through ABA as well, but I have spent a lifetime masking, and that therapy would probably not be the best for me as an adult. But I have been learning more and more about the stories of parents and caregivers with children who believe that these therapies are helpful, and that's their personal opinion and belief. I have a different opinion and belief about ABA, etc. But they're being denied claims. Their claims are being pushed out, et cetera. The
Yeah.
healthcare system in America is it sucks, and that's one S word that I will say on the air. Um,
We cuss here
so,
because I'm like on the edge of
oh
Tourette's, and
yeah,
so
great. Okay,
I
the
haven't
healthcare
done
in
it this
America is
time.
shitty.
But when I'm comfortable, I don't really
Yeah,
cuss a lot. But if I'm like sensory something, then it's a lot. It comes out a lot. So right now
yeah.
I'm warm. I'm fed.
Oh, good.
So I'm not
Yeah.
cussing today.
I'm not. I usually keep it professional, but when it comes to healthcare in America, it's shitty. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And especially when people who have higher support needs than I do, no matter their age or no matter their socioeconomic status, their gender, their ethnicity, their race, etc., they are not getting the support that they and or the people who care about them feel that they need. That's a shame. And
Mhm.
that's what's happening here. But so no, I have not gone through that process myself. It's convoluted. It is redundant. It's antithetical to what the medical profession is supposed to be, which is the Hippocratic Oath of do no harm.
There you go.
They do absolutely the opposite is they harm under the guise of do no harm. So no, I have not pursued that myself, and am I make the distinction, no pun intended, that is not my line of business to help individuals do that. So no, I
Yeah.
have not pursued disability on my own because I have low support needs and I have been masking for a long time, and I do not self-describe as high functioning. I disagree with the theory and the practicality of high versus low functioning.
Right. Right.
But I do understand and agree with having low support needs, um, and most of what I do to the effect of having to apply for disability.
That's I'm going to ask a little bit of a deeper question on that because I noticed in a number of your, like I said, I read a bunch of stuff and digged around, uh, and watched some videos, but it's like you do use the word and you do speak about yourself as being disabled, and I'm curious about that. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes, I identify as a disabled person first and foremost, and we can have the conversation around uh, the identity first, the person first language. I do not describe myself as a person with anything. I'm not a person with a disability. I'm not a person with autism. I am disabled. I am autistic because I was these things before I knew them. I was autistic when I was teaching autistic kids, and I didn't know that I was autistic. Uh, so I'm not a person with something because I don't carry that around like luggage. And it's not something that was thrown upon me. It is something that I fully embody, which is why I have these conversations. Um, so I am a person, I am disabled, and I'm also an onion. I describe myself to people as an onion without the snow. So the first layer of that onion for me is disability. And the second layer of that onion is neurodiversity, neurodistinction. And the third layer of that is being autistic. So when I got my diagnosis, I had already been in a position of working with autistic kids in a majority minority English as a second language K-12 teaching environment. So I was already around the other people and helping them to do and be better. So I didn't have an issue with accepting the fact that now I am officially disabled. Matter of fact, I was like,
Okay.
that makes me part of a protected class. Like I get rights because I am in this category of people now that I wasn't before. I had other rights before being a disabled person, but I have specific rights now in and out of the workplace, especially since my work is dedicated to the workplace. I have rights as a disabled person. And then the second layer of that is like, oh, well, now I know and have a clearer view of my brain working differently and how I have acted and reacted and not acted throughout the years. And again, I had an easier time accepting the fact that I am autistic because I was teaching autistic kids. I was around it at that time. But most people don't really have that experience. And then the third layer of it is being autistic out of the dozens or maybe 20 or so conditions that might be described as neurodistinct. Mine happens to be autism, which I think is very cool. I think it's awesome and I think it's great. And
This
again,
is the next thing I wanted to ask you, because it's like I tend to think of them, I mean, because it's a gift and a curse. You know, I want to say our conditions, our things, our superpowers, our distinctions. So like, in what ways are yours in particular, your lived experience, and in what ways are yours assets, your distinction assets, and in other ways, which are the things that if you want, again, it's, tell us everything, Grant. And
oh yeah,
but the in other ways, what is something that's just like, yeah, I don't like that, I don't, that's a, I want to say struggle, but it makes it sound a little bit heavy, but it's like, yeah, nah. So
yeah.
in the two sides, what's an asset and what's the other side of that?
Yeah, I'm glad you refer to it as an asset. I don't look at my capabilities as superpowers. I'm not saving lives. I'm not curing cancer. In my mind, in my eyes. So I don't look at them as superpowers. But for me, big thing is like time management, the ability to absorb vast amounts of information quickly, the ability to have like blinders on. My wife runs an in-home daycare with a bunch of toddlers around. I have three kids myself, and she's ADHD, and I can be in my office and I can like work amongst all of this commotion and like be focused and get things done. And she's like, I don't know how you do that.
That's a superpower.
Like,
I'm sorry. That's a superpower.
No, I am human, and after a while, like I'm like, hey, like everybody's screaming, like why are you screaming? But my wife, like immediately, like a minute of that, and she's losing her hair. But I can be in my session, in my 20-minute session, and I work in blocks. I batch my time. I use time boxing. I'm very structured. I'm very routine based. I like a routine. I like structure. And I'm in that, and I can work through that and be successful and get something done. Whereas my wife would never be able to do that. Vast amounts of information. I taught myself how to speed read. I can absorb lots of information. I memorized every flag of every country in the world in under 30 days because I like flags and I wanted to challenge myself. So I answer Jeopardy questions very quickly, not because I know everything. And people around me think that I'm smarter than I am because I answer questions. The questions that I do answer, I answer them quickly because my brain is listening faster than people speak. So I'm reading the question before they ever finish asking it. And then I'm answering it. And other people are like, wow. And I'm like, well, that's in my mind. I'm like, why am I waiting for this person to talk when I can get the information faster and go through, which is why everything I do on in my meetings, I have captions on. So I'm absorbing information. On the weekend, I read white papers just because I think they're fun and I like deep diving into something. Throughout my career, I've had 3 or 4 careers. And early on in my life, I was like, why can't I find something that I can stick to for a long amount of time and just be successful at that? I've been successful in everything that I've done. I've also had lots of failures, but I've had many accomplishments in vastly different areas of life because I believe that I am able to readjust, reinvent, and then when I find something, I can latch onto that thing. And I've never had experience with it before. And then I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. And I learn everything about it in a short amount of time that I can. learn everything about it in a short amount of time. And then I apply those things that I have learned until I gain some type of accomplishment in that particular skill set. And I've done that throughout my working life. And I didn't see that as an asset until the last few years.
Wow. Love
My
it.
ability with words, I have an uncanny ability. Some people would call it annoying. It depends on the situation to find errors in writing. I can find an extra comma or no comma where there should be an Oxford comma. I'm an Oxford comma guy. I will see an extra space behind a period. These types of things, and I'll be say, oh, I see this, and depending on the person and depending on the situation, they could see that as a bug, and they're like, oh, that's so annoying. Or the experience that I have had, they see that as wow, I never would have seen any of this, and this is going out to a whole bunch of people. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So these kinds of things I look at as assets.
I love it.
I,
That
I
is
would like
Alex's.
I would like to tie in there because I was working on our first newsletter, and one of the parts that I added to the newsletter is it's called a web disability simulator where you can switch on different ways people see web pages. So you can go on any web page and you can turn on like farsightedness, color blindness, dyslexia. So
Oh, nice.
literally the letters are start to dance before your eyes when you turn on this dyslexia simulator. So you experience how people with different neurodiversities perceive the world. And
Very cool.
for me it's aphantasia. So Sharon's hyperphantasia. She like sees really vibrant pictures. I see no pictures in front of my inner eye, my mind's eye. I can't even imagine the face of my daughter or my girlfriend. I have to look at the photo. So with everything that is described or like meditations, for example, where people describe, just imagine you're lying at your favorite place. I'm not able to do that. So I would like to ask you, can you describe how you perceive the world differently? What would be
Good
one
question.
way that you perceive the world in a different way than other people? Did you discover anything about your world?
Yeah.
Great question.
One way is with communication and not saying being realistic, but understanding innuendo or when people say they say a thing, but they don't mean that thing. And I take what they say literally. Now, this is after years of masking. This is after 3 years of knowing. This is with my wife, who's ADHD, who speaks in all generalities since I've known her many, many years. Everything is everything. It's all, nothing, ever, never. It's all generalities. And I'm like, yeah, but like 5 minutes ago, that didn't happen. So that can't be all the time because it didn't happen like 5 minutes ago. So for me, it's a hyper focus on specificity, even after all this time and understanding and working to get closer to my wife and understand that just because she said never, because never means never to me, because I would never say never unless I meant never.
Yeah.
So why would a person say never unless they meant that it didn't happen at all, ever? But she's like, no, I didn't mean never. You know what I mean? It meant like it happens sometimes. Well, no, because that's not the definition of never. You see where I'm going with this, Alex.
Yeah.
So
You're describing like over, I would say 75 to 80% of my marital arguments. My wife and I go around and she's very much, she's uses the superlatives, and I'm the one with ADHD. She's on the feeling side and very dramatic.
Yeah.
And I'm just always, but that doesn't make any sense. It's like somebody driving by on a bicycle in a conversation and then sticking a stick in the spokes. It completely, it's like, or the sound of a needle on a record in the middle of a conversation. As soon as she says that, it totally derails me. I'm like, wait a minute, you can't say never because, nobody wants a lecture.
Yeah, that's one way. That's one way. And another way, for sake of time, is efficiency.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people would choose, and a lot of times it's a choice. A lot of times it's a conscious choice. Why people would choose to do a thing, cooking, reading, whatever the thing is. Why people would choose to do a thing that creates more work, more time, more energy spent, more effort, when there is a more efficient way to do it. Why would you take 7 steps to do this thing when you could do it in 3?
I'm
Just
laughing.
because that's how you know, just because that's how you've done it, when either I've shown you or a different person has shown you, something has shown you that there is a more efficient way to get the same result. I have a hard time understanding people that do that. They do it based on tradition. They do it based on whatever. But I'm like, we could do this in half the time, half the money, half the stress,
Yes.
and double the efficiency and double the effectiveness. But you still want to do it that way. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So those
You're
are
preaching to the choir here.
Totally.
I know you've got a hard stop in 2 minutes. I feel like we're not done yet. Okay. So I'm thinking that we're going to have a part 2 on this. How do you feel about that?
happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we're just kind of we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg of like interesting stuff to talk about. Because it's like there's also people like this in companies, and how do these people
100%.
talk to each other? But this is the my thing of the behavioral science of like how do you get all these monkeys to play together? How do you get all these animals, to communicate? Yeah, I love the thing, not my circus and not my monkeys.
build community is the answer.
Yeah.
Build community is the answer. Now, I didn't say, I didn't say that was easy. I didn't say that was cheap. I didn't say that was going to happen overnight. But the answer to that is, how do we get all these people to get on a similar page in the same book? They don't have to be on the same page all the time. They shouldn't be, in my opinion. Yeah. Not everybody should be on the same page, because then you're just doing what everybody else is doing for the sake of doing what everybody else is doing.
Right.
However, we should be like in the same chapter of the same book. This is the book we're in because we do this, and this is what we do. Now, Alex is in chapter 1. I'm in chapter 2. Somebody else is, but we're doing the same thing in the same book. Building community is how that gets done, but it's not always easy. It's not always cheap, and it's definitely not quick, but that's what I am here to help organizations do.
I love it. I love it. Cool. Then we won't keep you, but that would be a great subject, as we always say, that's a good downhill parking for the next conversation, and dig into that, because I know a lot of people need help with that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and certainly. This has been great, and I certainly appreciate it, and I'm happy to continue the conversation.
Yeah, and everybody you can find, we're going to have like in the show notes, all of Grant's links and stuff, and he's got some really interesting stuff and videos you can watch, and he's got 3 books that he wrote that we didn't even touch on, and all around awesome guy, awesome human. So
a distinct human. I appreciate
distinct.
Yes.
Yes.
Although I did not graduate. I didn't graduate with any of my several degrees with distinction. I was a good student, but I didn't graduate with distinction, but I had distinction before I went to school. Exactly. I was distinct when I was in school, and I'm distinct now because I am a distinct human being. And that's what I would like to leave your listeners with today.
I love it. I love it. I'm also having the feeling that I want to have your wife on the podcast. So yeah, I think your wife and I need to have a chat.
I was thinking the same.
Right.
She would love to talk about. She's grown in so many ways, and she's understood me better, and all of that. So yeah, she'd be open to that.
Okay, then I'll hit you guys up, and I'll have a conversation, a chat with her, a preliminary chat. That would be great.
Yeah.
Super.
Well, happy New Year to you. However you celebrate happy and healthy, and
super chill.
You got my contact info, so
Yep.
I'll look to hear from you in the new year.
All right then.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
And we'll see you next year.
awesome. Thank you. You too. Have a good
Definitely.
one.
Grand. Bye
Bye.
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 That was great.
That was cool. Yes.
That was
Wow.
great.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him 50 million things, and it's like, oh my God, that's an hour. I could feel myself sweating, and I was watching the clock, and
Yeah.
I was kind of wanting to keep it, no. That was so cool. And I could watch him. I was watching him like relax more and more.
Yes.
And then it was just like, okay, now I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
But as soon as he started talking about his wife, I'm like, oh, she has ADHD and she runs she runs a daycare with like 5 toddlers. I'm like, who is this superwoman, right? And but actually, somebody with ADHD like would be able to handle that amount of crisis and chaos.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
I'm
guess so.
curious. Yeah. But as soon as he said, yeah, when they're all screaming and she can't handle it, and I'm like, really? Okay. That kind of is like, does she have sensitivity issues? Because normally it's
Ah,
like,
okay. I thought, or I understood it in a way that he meant he manages like to take care of the 5, 6 screaming kids, but nothing else. And she could not do anything else while all the kids are screaming. And he is able to get in this focus zone and in this
and just
really,
ignore them.
yeah, and
Yeah.
just phase out and concentrate on his
Yeah.
work sessions. But I
Could
still
be.
think that
Yeah.
somebody with ADHD can be quite good with
Mhm.
when you adapt to it. Yeah, managing like 5, 10 screaming kids. Should we keep recording a little bit
Well,
or?
I think we can like sign off and keep this part because that's I think our reaction for the like just jumping off and going, wow, that was great, is
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can
And
find
so
all of Grant's links, his link tree, and his that was what I wanted to say. This full circle. His website is called Compliance to Community. So that is a
mhm.
beautiful phrase, I think.
Yeah.
And you can find all of this in the show notes. Alrighty, then I'll
Yeah.
stop the
Yeah.
recording here.